Please,
I was
Lord
going to do a
Jesus,
little
let this go well.
thank you to everyone for taking the time to come here today. It's exciting to see so many engaged faces, and congratulations to those of you who've recently been elected to represent your society or club. It's very exciting. So, if everyone's ready, we'll crack right on with the AGM.
Amen. Amen.
Yeah? Keep it nice and infused.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Crack on.
Pete's going to do the speech
Which
for the motion.
For the motion.
Yeah.
Oh, so I'm not chairing. Such a, like,
Gonna do the what?
what's it called?
It's just fast.
The sponge.
Power hog. Speech.
So you just say Emma's going to come up and do the report to the Board of Trustees.
I would like to invite Embolin up to present the Board of Trustees.
See here, the Board of Trustees is made up of 5 sabbatical officers. Highest.
And student trustee. Just by Sam.
Yeah, I didn't finish.
Okay, that's why I had a.
I didn't finish. It's not made up of the 5 sabbatical. And it's the highest governance.
It's the highest body of governance within the Students' Union.
I wish you would do.
Well, feel free to waive your right to the
I'm
speech.
the highest.
Body of governance. Remember, you take the microphone. So this is for the room. This is for people watching online. So you have to speak into both. Yeah. Well, I've got it, and then when it's you, I'll pass it to you, and you can stand there with both of them, or you can stand there with just one. It's up to you. I'm going to see how close we are.
Just to let you know, we're streaming now, so don't say like anything into the mic you don't want to.
I'm going to put it down here. Worrying me.
this with the tripod. The only other thing is the laptop. You've got your SkyTribe. Put it on Spanner, take the settings to as well.
Can you hold that while I just ask Steph?
Bloody machines. You wouldn't think nothing is working. Nothing is working. You wouldn't think this costs £50,000. Yeah, we're streaming.
I think so. Do we need the thing up there? The report?
Well, that will come up in a minute.
Well, there's no point starting until we've got it up. That's the first thing we're doing. And then why don't we just... Is this working? Okay, and I've been told I have to speak into 2 microphones, so apologies if this looks a little bit weird. Hello everyone, welcome to the Union's AGM. Sorry that it's not started as promptly as it could have, but we've been having some technical difficulties. Great to see so many enthusiastic faces here, and congratulations to all the committee members who've recently been elected. We won't delay anymore, we'll start very promptly. So, first things first, we have the Union's annual report, which I believe Alan will scroll down to now. Oh, I will just say, my name's Hannah Waterhouse, and I'm the Union chairperson. So I chair the Union exec, which is made up of the sabbatical officers and the 8 part-time officers, which is why I'm the person talking right now. And I have Alan Sutherland next to me, who's the CEO of the Students' Union, my glamorous assistant. So this is the Union's annual report. The AGM have to vote to acknowledge that you've seen it. So just so you know, this is a statutory report that we have to submit every year. But this covers the last academic year, so when Dave Halls was president. So it should be in the packs you all seem to have in front of you. Does anyone have any questions on this?
To save the planet, Peter, we didn't print out all of the paperwork because it's been online for 2 weeks. So you've got the edited highlights here.
Did anyone have any questions? Okay, I'm going to take that as a no. So like I just said, you guys need to vote to show that, to approve that we've shown you, if that makes any sense. So just a simple raise of hands will do. So if you're acknowledging that we've shown you this report, can you please raise your hand now? Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much. So we'll move swiftly on to the presentation and approval of the Union's audited accounts. So again, this covers the last academic year. Is that on screen? So these have been independently audited, so you can't actually challenge what is in this, what this information is, but you can ask any questions if you'd like anything clarifying.
I think this is probably the most helpful page to concentrate on. And I accept that these are not the most convenient format to follow. This is not our choice. This is called the charities SORP, the standard something statement of recommended practice for charities to present their accounts. You can see unrestricted funds and restricted funds. Unrestricted funds is money that we can do anything we wish with, providing it's within the charity's aims. Restricted funds means that it's restricted for one particular purpose. So you will see that all your money, your own funds, sits within restricted funds. So at the end of the year, we had best part of £300,000 we were holding of your money. If you look to the left of that, unrestricted funds, that's all the money that comes in. So that the bulk of that is from the university, that 878,147. Most of that is from the University of Surrey, comes from you. And then there's the various incomes that we have from trading, and then underneath that, how much we spent in everything that we did, including how much we spent, the cost of sales, the staff cost, that kind of thing. And then you have a figure down the bottom, which is, one second, hang on. The problem is it also includes fixed assets, so there's a value for things like tables and chairs and the PA system and things like that. All in all, we made about £6,000 in surplus last year. Very, very tiny amount of money. That was after everything that we got in and everything we got out. We were left with about £6,000. I respect that these aren't very helpful, but if anyone's got any questions, it might be more convenient for you to ask them later on when we look at the annual budget. They're a lot easier to follow.
So did anyone have any questions on that? No? Okay. So you just had a question of where the £6,000 figure is. So in the very bottom right-hand corner?
It's under the net incoming resources for the year bit.
Do we have any other questions? Okay, then I just need you to raise your hand to acknowledge that we've shown you this report. Thank you very much. Okay, so we'll move swiftly on to the approval of the budget, which Alan is going to explain for us.
Incidentally, if you're wondering what all this stuff is on screen, which is available on the web but you don't have, our auditors not only they audit the figures, but how well we look after our money and your money, and what you want is everything in green. It's quite rare actually for an organisation to have everything green, but we do, which means that we are an honest business. We don't cheat, we don't fiddle things. That's what the auditors say. Right, here we are. Here's the annual budget. So there's two parts to this. And this is in your handouts, as I hear you all flapping over. So looking at the page that we've got now, at the very top section there, the income subvention is the figure that comes from the University of Surrey. So you'll see that there's been a bit of an increase from one year to the next, and there's a figure underneath it with no header. That figure was commission from graduation activities, which we have traditionally taken, since the university was founded. However, the university have taken charge of all aspects of graduation, and we passed that over to them, but they gave us the money back. So that's why we've had an increase in subvention, and we also had a small. It was below inflation, but we did have a slight increase last year, which was more than other university departments got. Every other university department has had a 2% cut, apart from some of the teaching and learning and research. But the central services, which is what we come under, have received some cuts. So we've been largely protected from that. So that's how much money comes in, and then you have all these categories. We can fit it all on one page. All these categories which you see here, which come under operational costs. This is the cost to operate the Students' Union charity, the core, the primary purpose as it's called. The headings should make sense. You'll see how much we spent last year, how much we're expecting to spend next year. So the amounts go up and down by small variations. What happens is things like the insurance premium goes up. It's gone up quite a lot this year. So if you drive a minibus, the less you can damage these minibuses, the less chance that figure goes up. Please don't drive them under low bridges, things like that. Bank charges, that's the charges from NatWest, has gone up. And then we try and cut back as much as we can, so we're not going as many places before. We cut that down by £1,000. So some of the figures go up and down, and what we're left with is a figure at the bottom. That's about £415,000. And then there are staff. You have 5 full-time officers, and then you have a variety of union staff. That figure there, 476, that doesn't represent all the staff in the union. Part of the salaries are paid for from trading activities. So you take the bit at the top, the 855, the bit in the middle, what we're going to spend, plus the people we're going to employ, and you're left with a deficit of 142,000. And that is covered with the next page. But before I move on to that, does anybody have any questions or concerns over the primary purpose budget?
So you have a question at the top there. So for the sake of the people who are watching online, that was a question about where the £19,500 for media and communication has gone this year, because they don't believe it's been very effective.
So the heading on that budget line has changed this year. Last year you would have read that as media amenities. So that 19,500 was in the control of what's called the editorial board. And the editorial board is chaired by the editor-in-chief and has representatives from the Stag newspaper, Stag radio and StagTV on it, as well as some staff in attendance and VP societies and a communications officer. And they decide through the year how much that money is spent. So that money has traditionally, for the last couple of years, been spent by the 3 media amenities. The change in the heading, Media and Communications, recognises pretty much what you've said, in that Media and Communications, the union is committed to spending just short of £20,000 on that, but it may not be entirely on those media amenities. It'll be for next year's team to decide what the most effective way to spend that money. So an amount will be allocated to the editorial board, not necessarily the full 19,500, but that will be for next year's officers team to decide. Does that answer the question?
I should also add, sorry, I will come to a question. We have an SMS number next to us on either side, and hopefully people who are watching online will be able to see that as well. Is that in the stream? Being demonstrated now. If you have any questions and don't want to put your hand up for some reason, or if equally anyone who's watching online has a question, you can text us and we'll do our best to read that out. So you can do that. So I saw a couple of hands up. Who has a question? Okay, so at the top there. Okay, so someone's asked who makes this budget.
Well, the budget evolves year on year, and we present it here, and you're the ones that approve it. So it's put together largely by staff. It's presented by the staff and officers at the University Partnership Group. It's then presented to the University Finance Committee when we ask for the money. But this is the place that decides whether or not this is what you want to spend the money on or not. There are some constraints that you have, which I won't explain unless I have to, but there's things you can do and things you can't do within this budget.
There was a question at the top of the back there. Okay, so someone's asking if the budget that has increased for societies is the same that gets divided between the societies and their budgets. Is that right? So this is Deborah Rideout.
Hi, sorry, I'm the finance manager. Yeah, if you look, the lines for sport. Oh, put that together, sorry. Yeah, if you look, the lines for sport and societies have been put together, and actually, all in all, it's been reduced. If you clump them all together, it was 82,500 last year, and we're actually budgeting 70,500 this year, because actually it's just not been used. The societies and clubs really have not used all their budgets, and it's a really bad thing to start putting money away just in case you need it. There is also a grants pot that you can go to if you do need extra money, so these budgets can be changed, but we like to give true budgets and a reflection of what you've spent rather than what we budgeted you last year.
Any other questions? Yep, so we have a question. Why do SABs have £1,000 for clothing?
That's a very good point. The reason is there is a dress code, an informal dress code, for attending university meetings and functions. There is a requirement, lounge suits as they're called, sometimes black tie, but as an officer you have to wear smart clothing. Bearing in mind that the full-time officers come into the role straight from being students, as you will know, some of you are lucky to come from affluent backgrounds, some of you not so much. So this is a historical thing that we've maintained, that we feel it's not fair for a new team to come in and expect them to have a smart wardrobe for university meetings when they're representing the Students' Union. So that allowance is made available for officers to use in order to buy a suitable wardrobe for university functions and meetings. And that figure actually hasn't changed in about 10 years or so. It's been like that for a long time, as the cost of clothing has gone down. It's not always spent, by the way, incidentally.
Yeah, we've got another text. I will come to more questions in the room, don't worry.
Why has insurance increased so much?
Why has insurance increased so much?
You can, if you like.
Thanks. Okay, since we went to Team Surrey and all of the sports people are now insured by Team Surrey, there is some sports clubs that are not in Team Surrey, so we now have to insure all of those clubs, so that put it up quite considerably. The minibus insurance has gone up a lot because of all the accidents that keep happening, and we're really keen to keep the buses new, and they cost more to insure. And also, when the Student Union incorporated as a charity under its own right, we lost all the staff's life insurance, so we actually had to take out our own. We used to be under the umbrella of the university, and we lost that. So there was 3 contributing factors with that this year that actually had quite a big effect on our insurance bill. We constantly look round for the best insurance. We look for deals. We try to make sure, you know, we don't just go with the same one. We ask them to tender each year.
There was a question over there.
Last year, a lot of societies were ratified. Did you take that into account, saying that the societies don't fund and quite a few societies?
Okay, so the question is, was the fact that a lot of new societies were ratified this year taken into account when doing the budget for societies?
Well, yes and no. There is a fund there for society startup. As you can see, it has gone down slightly. The budget isn't elastic. It can go bigger in some areas, but it has to go small in other areas. So if we do make it larger for more societies, new societies, then something does have to come down somewhere else. So by and large, sports and societies funding is pretty strong in this union. To give you an indication, Warwick Union, the society's budget is about £2,000 to £3,000. So, well, they've elected to have a lot more staff. So actually, there's not a huge demand for funding for societies, and it's not something we've ever run out of money in the past.
There's a question at the middle back. So there's a question regarding the Freshers' Fair budget and why it's gone up by about 25%. Is there more activities planned?
Hi, yeah. Freshers Week actually includes moving in and the whole thing. And we found there was quite a lot of hidden costs to all of that people were taking out of other budgets and photocopying and bits and pieces. And this year, for the first year, last year, we actually budgeted for it properly. Everything that was involved in Freshers Week came out of that budget, even though it went overdrawn. And it gave us a real true figure of how much Freshers Week costs us. We made the decision that we actually think it's really important for all of you and the freshers to spend that money on Freshers Week. And, you know, it's up to you with your vote, but we actually felt it was quite important for that money.
We've had a question via text of where the unspent money from societies goes.
When you give a budget, it's not really money in a pot. It's just a figure on a balance sheet. So that money just doesn't get spent at the end of the year. So when you saw that first sheet, it showed you that actually last year only about 20,000 of sports and societies was actually spent. So that all makes up the whole, the fact that we have a deficit anyway. So if you don't spend it, we're better. It's better for us. And obviously, as you know, our trade is struggling to make the deficit up. So it just gives us less to have to make.
We've had another question via text about why the telephone bills have gone up when other areas have seen a decrease.
Similar kind of reason, really. Telephones have been distributed around other areas, expenses and things like that. But actually, the SABs have decided last week that every SAB, incidentally, is given a smartphone for this kind of same reason that we had about the clothing. If you come in, you can't afford a smartphone, you're given one for work purposes. All the SABs voted that they would give it up. So we're going to lose 5 smartphones next year. So hopefully the telephone bill, we won't actually spend that much. But bills in life generally do go up as there's more activity. And telephone also covers all sort of communication by wire. We have an ISDN line, for example. We have trackers in the minibuses. That all is paid for out of the telephone budget.
Are there any more questions? Yeah, I see one at the back straight away. So we've had a question about membership salaries and why it's gone up by 20,000.
Well, we're not paying everybody more. That's an allocation to employ more staff. If anybody has been looking to get involved in volunteering or RAG this year, you'll have found there's been an empty desk in the Students' Union. There's been a real, and that we've really suffered because of that. One of the things we're measured on is how many volunteers, some of the RAG activity, and there's just no support for that. You'll see from the paperwork that will be talked about at the very end in any other business, there's a commitment to improving the staff structure. So we're actually employing proportionally more staff than that extra 20,000. Or we are not yet, but we have a provision to employ more staff than that 20,000 will allow. So volunteering, training, and we have a new placement year position starting next year in digital communications.
Are there any more questions? Yep. Okay, so a question of if some of the salaries are going towards volunteering and RAG, why is RAG and volunteering budget going down?
That's a very good question. That has been extremely underspent for the last few years because of the reasons I've outlined. So although we have cut it, it sounds a bit harsh, but the point of RAG is to raise money, not to spend it. So if we can give that a little bit more support, then those involved in charity fundraising will be able to raise more money, and that wouldn't necessarily need spending from the union in order to support it. The bulk of that really will go to supporting volunteering activity.
Any more questions? Yep.
The extra budget that was the money that was spent by the society, is that the reason why it went up from 12,000 to 3,000?
So is the reason there was unspent money from the societies the reason that it's gone up?
No, it hasn't gone up. You have to take those two lines together, societies and sports. Together was 42, next year is 30. So together it's gone down. Well, things like elections, for example, we had a bigger election turnout than we expected, so we spent more on elections. The insurance premium, we budget for it to be lower, we spent more on it. We spent more than Freshers' Week than we expected. So we underspend in some areas, we overspend in others. You always have a decision when you've got an activity and a message comes up saying the budget's spent. Do you create an extra space for some Freshers' Fair souls, or do you say that's it? We usually say that's it. We usually let it happen and then make adjustments as the year goes on.
Are there any more questions from the room or by text? We have one by text.
There's so many. Why is there a spending cap on coaches for clubs?
So why is there a spending cap on coaches for clubs?
What was the question?
Why is there a spending cap on coaches for clubs?
We don't have. It's part of the SSP allocation.
I think it's minibus maybe.
Are you talking about the minibus line? Oh, it's a text. Oh, why has crew training gone up by £1,000? Let me just have a little look at that. Where are we? Crew training. All right. Again, that figure is a lot less than we spend on crew training. There's a separate account. It appears in here. There's a big red line here. Technical services, which is minus £38,000. Stage Crew is an interesting society because they're the people, but then we own the equipment as the union. As you know, you want to be able to come into the union and be confident that things are not going to fall on your head or electrocute you. And the crew, when they're up in the roof, they want to make sure that they're not going to fall out. So we do look to improve the training every year, and also standards are raised every year. When you see something in the news, like I think it was Timberlake's audience rig fell down, the requirement for training goes up every year, so we have to match that, or else the stage crew who put on the events are not able to do the ambitious things that some of you would have seen at things like Colours Ball. Yes.
Is there no staff training next year? It doesn't have any money allocated.
Is there no staff training next year? It doesn't have any money allocated. Where? Staff training? No. No. Again, this is a historical line. You see, it didn't have any. Allocation in the year before either. So, the bulk of the staff training budget appears in here. See that line at the very bottom? Central costs, admin. That is where the staff training, budget now lies.
We've had a question via text about why the NUS affiliation cost is included in the budget, whereas other affiliation costs aren't.
Simply because of size. If you look at the other affiliation costs, they're relatively small compared to the £40,000 that we pay for NUS. And also, many of the other affiliations that clubs and societies do, they pay for them themselves. But even though you pay for it yourselves, you're still affiliating the union to that entity.
We have a question about why do we need to spend £1,000 for St John's?
Oh. Again, this is a little bit of a stage crew question. If you've ever been ill in Rubik's on a Friday night or a major event and you've needed help, St John's Links, they're called. It's a society that have a link with St John Ambulance, are there every Friday night. They go through a lot of consumables. They have oxygen tanks, they've got sick buckets and things like that. So part of that comes from the union, and that covers sort of big events like fireworks night and graduation ball, and part of it comes out of the second page here.
Okay, so we're going to take a couple more questions. Are there any in the room? If not, we do have some via text. Okay, so we'll go to ones from text. Why is the budget for Society Awards £4,000? Couldn't we cut back on this?
Well, yes, we could. We could have a smaller student awards, or we could charge people to come. All of these things are entirely possible. There's no reason why we couldn't. This is exactly why you get to see this, because you get to decide what goes up and what goes down. So if that's something that everybody's in favour with, then I would suggest that you lobby the president and the VP societies next year, and they can decide how much you spend on student awards.
There's a question. This document says that NUS costs 39,000. The affiliation list says 39.5. Which figure is correct?
Neither. When the affiliation comes in, it usually comes in at about £43,000. Then I spend a couple of months arguing with NUS, and we battle it out, and we try and get it as low as we can. So it will come in at about anywhere between £37,000 and £40,000. So we pick the best guess for budgeting purposes and put it in there.
Okay, thank you everyone for your questions. It's now time to approve the budget. So if
We haven't done the second part.
what's the second part?
This page.
Oh, the second part of the budget.
Sorry, I must say this is great. This is the first time an AGM has actually asked these questions, and it's really important because this is best part of £1 million of your money that you entrust in the union every year. So this is a bit more straightforward. Down the left, you will see the headings of all the areas. So this sits outside of primary purpose. You have a budget for income. The cost of sale, which is the next column, is the cost of buying things like food and drink that we sell on. Staff costs are, self-explanatory. Operational costs are things like electricity, gas, maintenance contracts. You take the income, you subtract the next three columns, and you're given a surplus or a deficit. So you can see that some areas next year are budgeted to lose money. Chancellor's Bar and tech services. Tech services is the equipment, and of course that powers entertainments and Rubik. So it's not expected really to make money. Neither is IT or HR, and central costs and admin are those things that I alluded to before, like staff training. It's also an allocation of some central costs, so a bit of me, a bit of Deborah, a bit of lots of other stuff. You add all that up, you take 142 and a bit £1,000, you use that to plug the hole in this page, and then consolidated, we're hoping to make £36,000 next year. I won't lie to you, that is ambitious. I've told you that we made £6,000 last year, so that is ambitious. The biggest risk in this, you will know from the debates that we've been having this week, are the first two headers, Chancellor's Bar and Chancellor's Food. There's a lot of ask, as we say in that. It also puts into context the sort of trading pattern of the union. Still the powerhouse is Rubik's, people coming in, dancing and drinking. Any questions on the traded services budget?
Question at the back. Okay, so we have a question regarding the figures for chancellors and the recent news that chancellors will be closing, and why that is, considering its place it has in student population society, when it is still making profit.
Well, they are two separate points, but I'll cover the first one first, which is why, when you're going to take £70,000, why would you shut it? Well, if you were to go back 6, 7, 8, 9 years, that figure was upwards of £250,000. It's been on the skids for the last decade. Now that's been masked by cutting back on the next 3 columns. You can only cut back on cost of sale as much as you can. So what we do, what the staff do, is in the summer, they do a best guess on how much alcohol we need for the year and buy it all in one go to get the best price. It's staff costs that have been slashed. So there's fewer management, fewer full-time staff, and then we start cutting back on part-time staff. Really, the death knell for chancellors is the state of the kitchen. Because we've stripped the money out year on year, this thing at the bottom, the £142,000, it has left us no money to deal with the fabric of the building. So the kitchen is in a very poor state. The tiles are coming off the wall, the floor's coming up, the ceiling needs to be done. The estimate from estates to do that is about £50,000, but that doesn't include shutting for 4 weeks, pulling everything out, doing it. When you add that into the projected figures, and the projected figures account for a drop in income, because it's been dropping for the last 10 years, so it's fair to say it will continue to drop, a rise in staff costs, because minimum wage is going to accelerate faster than ever before, so that's going to go up faster, and the income will continue to go down. Add in the money you need to spend in the kitchen, plus, don't forget, it's 5 years or so since Chancellors was refurbished. Another 4 or 5 years, it starts to look pretty dated. Last time we refurbished it cost us £300,000. So to find, £300,000 in a few years' time out of these figures, it's like getting blood out of a stone. Well, it might not today, but I can assure you, in 4 or 5 years' time, well, yes, because what happens is the trade starts to go down, you refurbish it, it goes up a little bit, but it's like a sort of it keeps on going further and further down. But the second point you make is about the space, and you can meet, and it's a big space. Well, the space isn't going, we're not knocking the building down. The patio will still be there, the space will still be there. The only thing that will go is the ability to eat food and drink in it. So next year, eat food and drink? Well, purchase. Of course you can eat food and drink. I mean, at the moment, people talk about it as a social space. If you came in with a packed lunch, and a Starbucks, some staff will politely ask you to leave because you haven't bought it in Chancellors. There's nothing to say that next year, and there's a commitment from the university to fund this, we create an area in which you can do this. But what we can do, because we can't do everything at the same time, as I've said to you, Rubik's and entertainments is still pretty powerful. So if you look at the top of Rubik's, the area at the very back with the windows, that's called Harry's Bar. We've been in the feedback that we've been getting from you is, could we do something with that? And that is financially viable. It could be possible to borrow against the income of Rubik's and create an area in there that you could eat your packed lunches in, that we could offer a bar service. But the days of the union being a food and drink operator are gone. People are eating less on campus. More of you are eating, preparing stuff at home and bringing in packed lunches. But, eating in campus restaurants is a declining business.
Are there any more questions around the room or via text? So there's a question about what's going to happen with the space in Chancellors.
Well, I mean, this was only finalised on April the 29th, so this is breaking news. And we've got a whole, year and a half to do this. So this really is for next year's team, to have a conversation with students, to come up with some ideas, talk to everybody. What do we do with the space? All I can say to you is that what I've said before, there's a commitment from the university to do something with it. So, it's up to you to come up with an idea.
Any more questions? Yep, we've got a question at the front.
Will the union gain any ownership, persuasive or otherwise, over the other facilities on campus, or will the university have complete control over the other food outlets on campus?
So will the union gain any ownership, persuasive or otherwise, of the other outlets on campus? Or will it be completely controlled by the university?
Not ownership in the sense that we own Chancellors, but control, yes. In the same way that Team Surrey is a joint venture between the union and the sports park, it's controlled by the union and the sports park. There will be a management board for campus catering, which will be with student union representatives and union representatives. And it does give the union a lot more power. And then this is what I've been saying over this week. If you're a president and you go and see the head of corporate services, and you say students want longer opening hours for Hillside, the answer is always, well, you can open Chancellors longer. We want cheaper food in the shop. You can say, well, you've got a shop, lower your prices. When you remove that, the argument goes, and it is up to the university in order to deliver these things at the control of the management board on which the Students' Union sits.
Any more questions? So a question from the guy at the back again. So there's a question about graduation ball and why we make money off it when students have to pay £45 or thereabouts for a ticket.
Okay. We budget to make 10. We certainly didn't last year. We try to budget to make 10. It's a bit optimistic. We looked at the pricing for graduation tickets, and actually the price hasn't gone up since, was it 12 years? 96. We looked at all other universities, we looked at what we offer, we looked at what you get, and actually I think it's a pretty good price, but we certainly didn't make 10 last year.
Also, if we were to be completely correct, by the time you come to the graduation ball, you're no longer a student.
I think we have a question via text. We're just going to do one of them because they're very similar. So there's general questions about why can't we just open Chancellors less so that we spend less in running it?
Well, it becomes an ever-decreasing circle, which is what we've had. We've spent less in staff, we've cut back in staff, which gives you longer waiting hours, and we spend less on repairing the broken chairs and things like that. So the minute you start salami slicing, as it's called, it's on life support as it is at the moment. It doesn't get away in the fact that to continue to operate it, you have to redo the kitchen, or else Environment Health come along and say, that's it, you can't operate anymore.
Okay, so we'll take one more question. I see a guy's hand at the back. So they've said these are just summaries. Is there anywhere where this information's more detailed?
Well, no, for this bit, this isn't, summary total. Right, okay, so you're looking for all the numbers that go behind this? Yeah, we don't generally publish that, but there's no reason why you can't have it. So there's a page for Chancellor's Bar, a page for Chancellor's Food. If you want to see that, we can put that online, no problem.
Okay, so after that second part, it's now time to approve the budget. So this is approving that you're happy for this budget to be submitted to university to fund our subvention for next year. So need a show of hands. Who's happy to approve this budget? That's approved. Thank you very much. So now we get to receive the annual report from the Board of Trustees. So I'm going to pass you over to Em Bolin, our union president, as she chairs that board.
Yeah. Okay, thank you guys. I really need the toilet, so I'll try and do this quickly. I'm Em Bolin. As president, I am also chair of the Board of Trustees, which is a great honour. The Board of Trustees is the highest governing committee in the Students' Union, and we are accountable to you. It's made up of the 5 elected sabbaticals, the student trustee, which is the union chairperson. Then we have 4 external trustees and 1 representative from the university. So the balance is more students than externals. So we meet formally at least 4 times a year, and then we might have a couple of extra meetings or informal meetings throughout the year. Students are welcome to come to those meetings. So to find out when they are, then you can just talk to a sabbatical about when and where they are. You'll find in the paperwork a little overview about the action points from our meetings this year. Yeah. that's that. So if you have any questions on that, then you can ask. Obviously, there's a turnover with the trustees. So every year we have new sabbaticals and a new union chairperson. So that turns over in July. Equally, our external trustees, every year one of them reaches the end of their term of office. So currently we're recruiting 2 external trustees, one to start as soon as possible and one to start in September. So that's what's kind of going on with the Board of Trustees.
Does anyone have any questions for Em? No. Okay. Then, yeah, I don't think you even need to do anything. You just need to receive that. So you've received it. Yay. So now we get to move on to the approval of external affiliations. So that is in your packs. And we're going to get it up on screen for you. I'd just like to make you aware that there is one missing. Perhaps 2 missing. The one that I know for definite is missing is one for StagTV, which is the National Student Television Association, which is a £63 cost for the year. Does anyone have any questions on those affiliations? Need explanation of what they are? Just too engrossed reading them. Any questions? Okay, then we just need to vote to approve them. So again, can I have a show of hands if you're happy to approve those affiliations? Brilliant. So now we move on to the exciting stuff. We move on to the motion. That's the news vote. Okay, so do people have the motion in front of them on voting systems? I'll take that as a yes. So just to briefly explain it, this union resolves to ask the union annual members meeting to decide whether the union should continue with AV or adopt first past the post. So to clarify, by voting to approve this motion, you're voting to have a conversation about it here. So in a minute, we'll invite people to speak for either side of this argument, but you're not going to vote to pass changing the voting system. You'll be passing talking about it. So I'll explain again before we do the vote, but we'll just pass it over. So I've proposed this, but as I'm chairing, I'm going to waive my speech to Peter Smead, who is the union's events and trading officer. So he'll have about a minute to talk about why he thinks we should discuss this.
Okay, I was only asked to do this about 5 minutes ago, so sorry if I'm a bit stuttering. But basically, yeah, just want to quickly talk about it. Like, obviously, I'm not going to go into detail about why it's a good thing or whatever, but I just want to say we should talk about it and just let us hear the argument. That's all you're voting for now, just to hear the argument. So it's just think it's right, just to, then you can have your vote either way and whether you like it or not. But I think it's important that everyone hears the sides of why we should or why we shouldn't. So please just vote in favour of it.
Okay, so I've not had anyone come forward and tell me they'd like to take the speech against. So that's open to the floor. Would anyone like to speak against this? No? Okay, then we'll waive this motion. So, yeah, to reiterate, you're not voting to pass changing the voting system. You are voting to talk about it in 20 seconds' time. So, show of hands if you'd like to talk about it and pass this motion. And show of hands if you don't want to talk about it. That passes. So, shall I briefly explain what it means? Or shall Alan briefly explain what it means? Or Pete can come back and explain it.
Okay, so I'll be really quick. So essentially, the union elections, what we've just had, you're ordered to rank each candidate, so like 1 to 5 if there are 5 candidates, where 1 is your favourite, and then you order them down. But this would change it so it's essentially the same as a general election. So you'll just put an X by your favourite person, and then that's it. Obviously, the aim of this was just to bring more people into the election system. So obviously, this is a system that we use for our general elections that have been used ever since the start of our democracy. So obviously, a lot of people are used to it. And I think it would bring a lot more people into the election system by making it easier, because we're not saying, oh, do 1, 2, 3, because half the time is spent telling people, you know, how to vote and what to do. This just kind of takes down one of those barriers and makes it a bit easier. So that's essentially what we want you to vote for, so we can change our election system to that.
Are there any other comments from the floor? Yeah? Yeah, do you want to come down? It's probably easier. I'll walk it up. Again, interactive.
Thanks. I'm going to say to keep AV, because it is a better system, and to change it we'd have to have a good reason to. And I don't think any of the reasons we've been given are really sufficient. I don't think it's going to draw in more voters. I was talking to some students earlier and they said like they don't really mind what the voting system is. The ones who didn't vote didn't say it's because of the voting system. They said it was because they were lazy, quite honestly. Their words, not mine. And I don't think anyone will go to the voting booth, see that it's AV, and then decide, oh, I'm not going to vote then. And it's quite self-explanatory how to use. If you like someone, you put 1. If you like someone else a bit less, you put 2. Don't like them at all, you don't put anything. So.
Okay, Maz would like to speak, our VP Societies.
Hello, everybody. First of all, it's in line with what happens in the general elections as point 1. If people are lazy, it's a lot quicker to just pick a candidate. And I'd just like to say, in the history of Students' Union at Surrey, no one, like if we were doing first past the post, that person would have won every single time based on the number 1 vote in an AV. So there's no harm in having a little change, and the results probably wouldn't change, and it would keep it a lot more simple for students.
There was a hand that popped up over there from Jordan. He's going to make me walk all the way to her from the looks of things. But then people listening and watching online won't be able to hear you. Travesty.
Hi everyone, I'm Jordan. I feel the need to comment since my name is at the bottom of this motion. I believe that every area in the elections needs to be looked at for improvement. We've done lots of other things, but we've never actually looked at the voting system. What it will do is increase voter turnout. It will help more people understand what's going on, and as Maz said, it wouldn't change any of the elections that we've ever had. So I would strongly suggest voting for this.
Are there any other questions? Yeah, lots. There was a guy down there who was first, but I'll come back up. Oh, actually, Chris was first as well. I will try to get to as many people as I can. I've just been going on who I see.
Hi guys, how's it going? Alright, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to ask you all to not vote to change the election voting process to first past the post and remain with single transferable votes, the system which we have at the moment. I'll keep this nice and short, as I don't think it really ought to take too much to convince you that we shouldn't really change it. What happens to the candidate that you voted for doesn't get elected? Well, in STV, you have the option to select your next preference. Therefore, you still get a say in who you want to fill the position available, should your first candidate not get it. So certainly from that point of view, I feel it's a lot more fairer. Sure, although first past the post is a much simpler way of voting, but we do, obviously lose the option to then vote for your preferential candidates. Although the fact remains that over the past 13 years of voting history, using STV has only actually affected the outcome of 1 vote, so it has affected it. And certainly the fact that it has actually affected one of it shows that, the whole point of using STV makes more sense to do so. Democracy won that day because the people who voted for that candidate who did get elected, obviously, got elected, so it makes more sense. STV system is supposedly more complicated, unnecessarily slow, and takes extra time. How complicated is it really to fill out numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. for your favourite candidates? It's not really that extra complicated as opposed to putting an X. So really, we should just stick with STV. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay, I'm going to take 3 more. Going to take 3 more points on that. So I saw a hand here and I saw a hand in the middle, and then I'll take another look.
Hello. One of the things I'd like to make a comment on that using the single transferable vote, it basically eliminates the possibility for tactical voting, because in the first past the post system, it's entirely possible that you'll end up voting for a candidate you don't actually like, simply because it means that the person you don't like more won't then be able to get in. If you understand what I'm saying. So it basically allows for less sort of second and third opinions to not be completely dominated out of the field of view by the first few candidates. Other than that, I'd feel if the Students' Union believes that adopting a first-past-the-post system would dramatically improve voter turnout, would it not have been simple to do like an opinion poll and then be able to give us some solid data regarding this?
I went to the hand I saw up there.
Hello. It says in the literature on the motion that all other higher education unions currently use alternative vote for voting. Now they have these sorts of meetings, they can vote on what they want to do. They've thought about this. If Surrey is the first person to try and make this simple, you're proposing that's the case. Are you trying to say that we're stupider than all of the other students' unions in the country?
Okay, is there any other comments people want to make? Maybe someone in favour of it for a bit of balance? I technically saw his hand first. I'm really sorry.
Just want to check, we're not actually voting to change to STV, it's to AV. Well, AV voting to do first past post, right? We are currently AV. Yeah, okay, right. With first past post system, you currently get 1 vote and you vote for your favourite, and that is it. If you go with AV, you can vote 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you order them. Hence, you get more of a vote. So if you go with first past the post, you could end up with the person you would want least in the role elected, which would possibly mean they're voted in by about 20-30%, which is generally what happens in general elections. So they don't represent the masses of the population. This is only potentially what could happen, so just something to consider. But with AV, you have more of a say, so you could end up with your second choice or third choice being elected, which instead would mean you still have a say, and it's not maybe your first choice, but you still have a say on who actually wins the election rather than your first choice not getting voted in.
Okay, so those are the 3 final things that I said we'd take. So we get to move to the vote. No, that was for the motion. So I'm going to ask you to put your hands up if you agree to change the voting system to first past the post. And if you vote to keep it as it is. The voting system remains. Okay. So the next item on the agenda is constitutional amendments. I don't believe we've had any. So then we move right on to any other business. So I've had 1 formal request for any other business from our union president, M. Bollen. So we did have a video that was going to be played, but the audio isn't working. So bear with us for 1 second. What do we do instead? Have a conversation amongst yourselves. They tried. Okay, everyone. I'm going to pass you over to M.
Sorry about that. I think I love videos, and I think they speak for themselves. Unfortunately, the video is not working, so I'm doomed to speak. You should have picked up one of these. Hopefully, you've got one, which is for you to take away, to read it, to think about it, to consider it, to talk about it, to ask questions about it. This is basically our vision for the future of the Students' Union. It's called the 2024 Experience. What will be happening, which is really important for you guys to know, and we will be publicising it as a union so that people who aren't here will know about it as well. This is going to a referendum. A referendum is a campus-wide vote, and it's a simple yes or no vote. Yes is for this vision to go through, which will lay the foundations for next year's team to start really talking to students about the details. This is purposefully not overly detailed. It's an overview of how we'd like to change the structure of the union. So yeah, it will be going to a referendum, and the vote will take place 2 weeks from today. So that's on a Thursday, 2 weeks' time. Campus-wide vote. You'll get sent an email link to your email, personalised link, and you vote either yes to put this through or no to keep everything exactly how it is. And that's that.
Okay. So just to add to what Em said, there can be yes/no campaign teams. So there will be one campaign team for each group, a yes campaign and a no campaign, but they're student-led. So if anyone is interested in leading those campaigns, can we get a quick show of hands if anyone would be interested in getting involved? Okay, so there are a few hands there. I suggest coming down to the front afterwards, talking to either myself or Charlie, the returning officer who sat at the front. He's not going to wave or anything. Now he is. Yeah, because there's a chance to get involved in the campaign. I believe this is the video without any sound. You can create a little song if you want to go along. Okay, so just to reiterate, if anyone's interested in being involved in the campaigns, come to the front and speak to myself. And with that, this AGM is over. Yay. Before you get too excited, I do just want to mention one thing. As I'm sure you're all aware, voting today opens for the events and trading by-election. So when you will go home this evening, hopefully you'll receive an email link which is inviting you to vote, and voting closes tomorrow evening. So similar structure as before. So make sure you get involved, vote, share links with your friends so they know to do the same. Thank you. If you're here for committee training, can you just wait here and it will start shortly?